There are moments when life as you know it completely falls apart. Divorce, loss, failure, heartbreak, financial collapse. It's 2 a.m., you can't sleep, and everything feels like it's over. But here's the truth. This is not the end. I'm Christy Zlatkus, and this is a show where we talk about the strategies that turn heartbreak, loss, and failure into success, and share the real stories of people who've done it. Because no matter how dark it feels right now, your story isn't over. Hello, and welcome back to This Is Not the End. In today's episode, we have with us Holly Hoffman. Holly, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm truly honored.
I truly appreciate you coming on the podcast. So for listeners who are meeting you for the first time, who are you and what do you do?
I am actually a professional speaker, travel around. I've been to every state but two. I've been to the Bahamas. This summer, I'm speaking in Africa, Canada next year. So I am a professional speaker. I'm an author. I've written 3 books and started 15 years ago. I took an opportunity, and through that opportunity, it became a speaking career, and I absolutely love it.
Okay, so what was the opportunity?
Okay. We'll break the news to them, right? The opportunity was I was actually on the reality show Survivor. No clue. People are like, why did you do that? And I said, I don't know. I just it was off the whim. I made a video and I thought I'm just going to do it. And I was chosen out of like 100,000 people. I just could not believe it. And I watched the show. So I was a fan of the show and just thought, well, I'll just throw this video together. And I did it, and I got there and I made it, and I almost won, and I learned a lot about myself.
You know, you miss 100% of the chances you don't take. So how cool is it that you took that one? And it sounds like it changed the direction of your entire life.
My goodness, it totally changed my life. I was a stay-at-home mom. I coached swimming part-time. I officiated high school volleyball part-time. And I took this one opportunity. And the first time actually I was asked to speak, I said no. I said, I'm not a speaker. I don't know anything about speaking. And they called me back and they said, we just really want to hear your story. And so I called Jeff Probst, who's the host of Survivor. And he gave me the best advice ever. He said, Holly, you need to tell them your story and stay true to yourself. And I thought, okay. So I went there and I didn't have a PowerPoint. I didn't have notes. I just went up and I stood in front of these people and I gave them my story, and it kind of just snowballed from there. The first 2 years, I probably did about 20 programs. And then the third year, it really took off. And now I'm with 9 speaking bureaus. I've written 3 books and travel all over, and I absolutely love it. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? So you went on Survivor, you became a speaker, and everything's been perfect ever since then, right?
No, it hasn't.
No, or you wouldn't be on this podcast. So tell me, what was that moment? What was the failure? What was the moment that kept you up at 2 a.m.?
Well, first of all, I failed on Survivor. I was on national television. That was a huge failure. I hit day 5 and I'm crying like a big baby on national television. And I wanted to quit. And Jimmy Johnson, the former NFL football coach for the Dallas Cowboys, actually walked up to him and I said, I need to talk to somebody. And he and I went over and sat on this log and I said, I'm done. And he encouraged me to stay. So I truly believe people will watch this series or this episode and they'll say, did CBS make you do that? No, I had a complete meltdown. I had a complete breakdown on national television. I wasn't myself. I even go back and I watch it now and I'm like, God, who is that person? But didn't want to be there. Didn't think it was real. And it just started messing with my mindset. And I just remember getting up from that log and thinking, first of all, I am not a quitter. I have never quit anything. And so that was kind of embarrassing even to watch that on national television. But you know what? That's fact of life. We all have breakdowns. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter how much money you make. We all have meltdowns. We all have breakdowns. And I'm human. I am no better than anyone else. And I'm very lucky that I have a fantastic job and a wonderful family. Yeah. So that was kind of the first really, really hard time in my life. And so then I started building this career and I knew nothing about speaking. I was charging like, just oh, I'll just pay for my gas in a hotel room. I
Oh,
didn't know that
wow. You're
people
really deciding
I
like
didn't
that.
know people did this for a living. And then I had a speaking bureau reach out to me and she helped me a lot. She's like, Holly, do you realize what people make speaking? Do you realize what you could do with this? And so I dove in head first and I started getting all these programs. I started loving it. And about 9 years ago, I came home one night from a program and my husband of 34 years told me that he didn't want to be married to me anymore. And
Oh,
I was like, what? We had a few issues, but I personally, honestly did not think it was that bad. Basically told me he was no longer in love with me. He just didn't want to be married and it was time for him to move on. So we did separate.
hmm.
I had never been on my own. I was never on my own. I started dating my ex-husband in high school and we got married. I went to college for 1 year and we got married. We had children. So I always kind of had him at my side. He basically took care of me. I never had to pay a bill. I never had to buy a car. He just he was always there. And so when I left and we were separating, I walked into an apartment. I got an apartment and slept on the floor for the first 3 nights. I had a blanket
Okay.
and a pillow and nothing. And I felt like I was back in the forest. I felt like I was back on day 5 that I wanted to quit. Then again, I had to get up off that log and say, you know what? I am not a quitter. I am not a quitter. And it was hard to keep my business going. I would walk on the stage and, here I'm a motivational speaker and I have to fire all these people up and nobody really knew what I was going through. And I would walk off the stage and I would go back to my hotel room and I would literally fall on my hands and knees and I would cry so hard that I would just cry myself to sleep. So it's hard to keep going when you're faced with adversity and it's hard to keep going when you're faced with huge challenges, but you really have to think about yourself and it's not selfish when you think about you and how you can get through hard times in your life.
So when you were sitting on that log, or when you were sitting on that floor of that empty apartment with that blanket, what did you say to yourself?
I did a lot of self-talk and I kept telling myself, Holly, people can tell you, I have a lot of friends that have never been through a divorce. They've never been through something like this. And they would just say, he's not worth it. Just move on. It takes years to get over something like this. And I would have to tell myself, Holly, you are a good person. Holly, you are a strong person. You have to just take one day at a time, one step at a time. I prayed a lot. I have a very, very good support system with my family. My kids helped me. My mom helped me, but I had to really do it myself. And even though you can have all the support in the world, but when it really comes down to it, you're the one that has to say, you know what? I have to do this. I have to dig deep. I have to use my self-talk. I have to say, I'm going to change my mindset. You're the one that has to get up off that log.
What surprised you most about yourself in that moment when you were telling yourself that?
Through this whole experience, I think what really surprised me the most is how strong I really am. And at the time, I didn't realize it. There were many, many nights I cried myself to sleep. It hurts. My
Yeah,
my chest would hurt.
absolutely.
I would feel like someone took a knife and stuck it in my chest and turned it 4 or 5 times. And I was very consumed with it. I was trying to hold this job together, figure out, I tried to convince him to go to counseling and he didn't want to. He just wanted to move on. And what I really learned also is that you can't control every situation and
Nope.
you can't. So don't try to say to yourself, and I was like the type of parent raising my kids, staying home I always knew where my kids were. I was the one that packed their lunch, packed their swim bags, so I did everything for everyone else. And all of a sudden here I am on my own. And then I thought to myself, now, Holly, it's time to do it for yourself. You've done it for everybody else. Now it's time for you to take care of yourself. So I really, really learned, don't become complacent in that situation. Don't get stuck on that log. You have to tell yourself, okay, this is what happened. I have to accept it and I have to move on. And I know it's hard.
No,
Believe me,
it is
I know.
so hard. I've worked with so many people who just get stuck and they get stuck. I'm going to use your words on that log. And they get stuck in wondering why or how could I have done better or can I fix this or what. Get stuck in the hopes and dreams of the future that they were going to have that is not theirs anymore. And all the energy that you spend looking in the rearview mirror is energy that could be spent looking ahead. And it's so hard for people who are, on that log or for me when I was on that floor to do that. I'm not saying that it's easy, but if you're listening to this, here's your wake up call. Do it. Look ahead. Figure out what ahead could look like for you because it can be a truly magical opportunity to change your life.
Yeah. And when I tried it out for Survivor, I was doing something completely new. I was facing a fear that I thought I would never, ever do. Really, what it is I had to live in the jungle and try to survive for 39 days, and I made it 38. So in my program, I say, you're never one day short. And, I didn't make it to 39, but I made it to 38, and I had to face my fear. I had to say, okay, I can do this. And that's what I had to do to get up off that floor on that apartment. I have to say, was I scared? Yes. Was I lonely? Yes. Was I confused? Yes. But you know what? Tell yourself that. Say, you know what? I'm lonely. I'm confused. I don't know where I'm going to go from here. But take the opportunities and try something and say, okay, this is what I'm going to try. I wrote a new book. I wrote a new program. Go for a walk. Call a friend. Don't sit and dwell.
Okay.
That's what I probably did too much of. I would sit and then my mind would just race and race and race. And that's probably what I shouldn't have done.
So when your mind was racing, what thoughts did you have to discard and which ones did you hold on to?
I had to get rid of the why me and start. I felt really sorry for myself. Okay, I did all this stuff for my ex. I basically raised the kids. I took care of the house, and why wasn't I good enough? And I also had to think, wait a minute, this isn't about me. This was more about him. He had lost an election and he had never lost anything in his life, and I think that just put him down, and he said he was in a real dark hole. And so I was like, okay, this I have to turn this around. This really isn't about me. He's the one struggling, and he was going through a really bad part. I think it was what do they call it? A midlife crisis. I really believe that's what it was. So I had to take that and say, okay, what am I learning from this experience? And I was not a very independent person. I relied on Charlie a lot. I relied on him for everything. And all of a sudden I was like, okay, now I have to change the light bulbs, and I have to change the furnace filter, and I have to do this. But you know what? I did it. I researched it. I did it. I lived in an apartment. Then I bought a condo. From the condo, I bought my own house. I had never purchased a house. I had never purchased a car in my life because Charlie always did it. And here I sit in my house and I'm like, I did this on my own.
How does that
And
feel?
oh my gosh, it felt wonderful. I remember the day that I signed this to buy my house.
Hmm.
I started crying, and here I was in my 50s, and I've just purchased my own home, or dealing on a new car. I'll never forget that day when I walked out and I was just like, I just bought myself a car. And
And you didn't have to ask anybody's permission or
no,
negotiate out what color you were going to get or
but
what
yeah,
package you were going to do. It's so silly. I know it sounds so silly, but you enjoy the togetherness, of course. But when all of a sudden you realize you have the power, like I remember for me, it was when I adopted Lily, my first cocker spaniel that I've had as an
yeah,
adult, and I got to pick the dog. I got to pick the dog's name. I trained that dog, and let me tell you, I trained her exactly how I wanted to train her. I didn't have to negotiate with anybody or have anyone feeding her something under the table or whatever else. And the freedom in that
I
I
know.
chose and in my home, I don't know if it's felt this way for you when you bought your house, but I got to pick all the decorations. I got to pick all I didn't have to compromise. I didn't have to not pick a bedroom that was too girly because I'm a girl and I want a girly bedroom and that's just how it is. There's a joy in kind of rediscovering yourself through
Oh
the
my gosh.
process of creating your home.
And I did something for the first time in 15 years I had never done. I've always had a speech. Even the months of December or January that are very slow, I've always had one or two. So when I started, I've never taken a month off in 15 years. So this last August, I was offered 3 programs and I said, no, I'm taking the whole month off. I cannot explain to you what that did to me. There were days I would sit in my recliner and I read a great book. That's when I finished the book by Mel Robbins, Let Them. I would take a nap. I would go for a walk. There were some mornings I slept till 9 o'clock, and it made me realize that I can do this on my own. I can figure this out. I have built this business. I was going through a very hard divorce while I was right in the middle of it. A lot of people did not know because I would get on stage and I'd be like, okay, this is my job. This is what I have to do. And I would go to the lonely hotel room and cry and cry and cry. But as I would get back on the plane, there were many times I would sit on the plane and I would cry, but I would tell myself, you're stronger than this. You can get through this. Someday you're going to look back at this and you're going to go, this was all worth it. And you know what? I can actually say that now because where I am right now, I love my life.
So, where are you right now compared to that moment that you were on that floor? How have you grown? How has your life grown? Inspire those who
It's
are at home right now.
it is I can do things on my own. I can make my own decisions. I can go to bed when I want to go to bed. I can eat when I want to eat. I can eat what I want to eat. Now, don't get me wrong. Would I love to be in a relationship and, have someone to go to a movie with or out for dinner? Yeah, I really would. As of right now, I'm not ready. And I truly know that there will be a time where I will be ready, but I'm still feeling like I'm discovering myself because I was married for so long. And I feel like I'm doing now what I should have been doing when I was 19. And I'm not a partier. I'm not saying I'm going out and I'm partying, but it's
But just the
finding
self-discovery.
who I am. I'm stronger, I'm happier, I'm more independent, I work harder. I love my grandkids. I love my kids. I spend a lot of time with them. They support me in everything. They're probably a little overprotective because, here I should be tracking them when they travel. And when I travel, they track me. They're like my parents, but I just feel more self-confident in myself. Now, when I go on stage, I'm having more fun. When I started right away, I was so serious. And then I would walk off stage and I would forget something and I go, oh, I forgot that quote, And then when I was on stage and I was going through my divorce, it was like I was just trying to get through it. Oh, just keep pushing, Holly, just keep pushing. And then once I was feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm a more confident person, I'm a more independent woman. Now I love doing what I'm doing because I love myself. And you have to, I'm not trying to say that to sound conceited, but you have to love yourself in order to love what you do because it will show 100%.
I couldn't agree more. The other thing that I believe you have to love yourself and know yourself better. Now, granted, I am in a new relationship. I guess not
Hmm.
that new. We've been together 3.5 years, but new compared to the breakup. And I took a long time before I got in another relationship. It took me about 8 years. I'm not saying I didn't try some dating here and there in between, but it took me eight
Hmm.
years to really be ready to be in a partnership again and find the joy in a partnership again. But I think I'm a much better partner because of those 8 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that when the time is right and someone walks into your life that you'll be a better partner too? Like, have you learned more?
Yes, I really do believe that. When my ex-husband and I were together, what were we doing? We were raising kids. We were running a ranch. I was coaching a swim team. I was working part-time officiating volleyball. He was gone at meetings. I was gone at meetings. If I can give any advice about a relationship, we were a lot of times going in different directions and spend time together. Even though you've got 3, 4 kids and they're in all these activities, you got to take those date nights. And we honestly didn't. We really did not do a lot of date nights. We did some vacationing here and there, but our vacations were to swim meets with our kids. So you have to take that time. And so I feel like we were so focused on doing things right with our children, parenting those kids right. And don't get me wrong, we have phenomenal kids. One is a lawyer, one is a journalist, and one is a doctor. I mean, they've got great families and a great kid, but you also got to make sure that that relationship is there as well. And I think it's going to make me a better person because I'm going to realize that I want to trust someone. I want someone to be my best friend. And that's, I think, what I would look for right now in a relationship is someone that I can really sit down and have a great conversation with, and someone that just wants to spend time with me and hold my hand and go for a walk and watch a movie and, just those little things that my ex-husband and I probably didn't do and that I wish we would have done more of.
No, I get that, all of that completely. For me, it was a lot of the same things, but it's also knowing myself a lot more and not living my life what I call sleep at the wheel. Just doing the next thing you're supposed to do, the next thing you're supposed to graduate, and then you're supposed to do this, and then you're supposed to do this, and you're supposed to do this, and just kind of going along with the plan without ever thinking about what the plan is.
Yeah.
The other piece to
Yeah.
it, and I say this one all the time on the internet, date your spouse or someone else will. I say it in business, date your clients or someone else will. And I don't
Yeah.
mean that as in permission to cheat or anything like that, but you're absolutely right about the intentionality. In my relationship now, one of my big things is we greet each other when we get home every single day. You don't just walk in the house and go do whatever you're going to do in your office or whatever else. Like, make the point to be like, hi, my person. I'm so
Yeah.
happy to see you.
Yeah.
And just prioritizing those little things can really make such a big difference going down the
Yeah.
line.
Yeah.
And
And
not to say
after a
that,
hard breakup, after a divorce, you really have to find yourself before you're going to allow another relationship, a person to come into your life. And I really also believe that you will know when you're ready. Like you said, it took you what, 8 years? It's taken me a while. And right now my happiness is my grandkids, my children, my friends. I mean, I have a great group of friends, my work, and I think sometimes also we're too focused on what we don't have. And look at what you do have. Because right away, when I went through my divorce, I can remember the first time I ate by myself. And I ate by myself when I traveled for my job. But now I was eating by myself and I was divorced. I was like, oh my gosh. But now I have no trouble walking into a restaurant and sitting down and eating by myself.
no,
It's that self confidence.
we need to teach my mom that one, how to go have a dinner by herself. All right.
Dinner
So,
with your mom. I
I
would
mean,
have dinner
I
with.
love having dinner with my mom, but
I love your
she keeps
mom.
telling me that's something she's never seen. I'm like, no, it's one of the most empowering things you will ever do is to go have dinner by yourself. And who cares what people are looking at you? Who
Yeah.
cares what you're thinking? Like, just go and date yourself and have a good time. Actually, in my upcoming book, that was another chapter I did. Start with like, go to the movies because you're in the dark, and
Yeah.
then go have coffee with yourself, and then go, try a
I do.
weekend away. And
Yeah.
you can learn so much about yourself when you're not trying to, I guess, appease whoever you're with.
Yeah. And I also think it makes you a more courageous person. I'm speaking
Absolutely.
for a group and they offered to take me to Africa and I'm going to speak to the children in Africa. I probably would have never, ever considered doing that. It's always kind of something I've thought about. And I'm like, no, I'm going to do that. Let's do it. Let's start making plans. So I also think I'm at the point in my life where my kids are all grown, they're married, they have great jobs. So if I do want to take that adventure, that journey somewhere, I can. And I'm okay with doing it by myself.
So, what does your life and your business look like now compared to that moment when you were on the floor of that apartment?
Yeah, it's really taken off. I work with 9 speaking bureaus. I book on my own as well. I'm actually flying to Arizona tomorrow to speak in Tucson. On Thursday, I'm doing 2 programs. My goal when I started speaking was to speak in every state. I had 2 states left, New Hampshire and Alaska. I just booked one in New Hampshire. So
Sounds
next year I'm speaking in New Hampshire, I'm speaking in Alaska, or not Alaska, Canada. So I do have Alaska left. So
so. If anyone's
anyone
listening,
that's listening out there that's from Alaska, that's my last state. And that was my goal when I started this speaking business 15 years ago. But this is how I feel right now about this business. When I started this business, I had no idea what I was doing. I relied on a lot of other speakers. Like I would call them and ask them questions. Now speakers are calling me and asking me for advice. So I feel like the growth has definitely happened. And they're like, okay, Holly, how are you getting all these gigs? How are you, well, the stage is your marketing. You gotta love the stage, and you gotta love the people, and that's truly, I love doing what I'm doing. I'm more relaxed about it, and I'm not as hard on myself. That's probably the biggest thing as well. I was very hard on myself when I started this job, and now I'm not as hard on myself, and I'm having more fun.
So, in every entrepreneur's life, there are people that are hard on them. And sometimes they're well meaning. Like, I've had family members who are like, oh, don't grow your business too fast, or oh, don't sign this lease for too space. What if you don't? And they mean it well. They're, it's their anxiety. And sometimes there are people that flat out are just like, you're getting too big for your britches. Why are you doing those things? How do those voices play in your head now versus how did they then? Is there a difference? I know for me there is.
I did listen to some advice when I started, because I didn't really know the business. I'm going to be very honest. I didn't know it. And I did some things that people told me to do, and it didn't work. And so I learned from those things. And what I learned, this is my business practice. I learned that I am my own boss. And if it's working for me, why not continue? Why, I've had other colleagues say, you're not charging enough, or you should speak to this group and not this group. No, this is working for me. I had 14 programs in October. I think it's working. So you got to realize what is working for you. Sometimes the comparison, especially in social media, comparison is really a double-edged sword. It can be good or it can be bad. And it can be good in a way that you can say, oh gosh, comparing yourself to other speakers. Well, what are they doing? Maybe I could just get a little hint from that, and say, just like a marathon runner, they're going to compare their times to other runners to improve their running skills, but don't use comparison as a negative and say, well, I can't get that speech. How did they get that speech? That's wrong. So I really look at it now as is social media is hard, because I would sit and I knew there were times where I was like in the top 3 for a program. And then I would search to see who, if I didn't get it, who got it instead of me. And so I don't do that anymore. This is my business. It's working and I'm having fun. I'm enjoying it. So I'm doing what works best for me.
That advice. So, speaking of advice, for that person who's listening right now, maybe they just got told that their spouse wants a divorce, or maybe they've come to the realization that they want one, or maybe they have really made a huge mistake in their business and they're wondering, how the heck am I going to figure this out, feed my family, keep my employees? They're on that log in that moment. What advice do you have for them?
When I think back about playing the game of Survivor and the day that I was sitting on that log, I almost felt numb. And the day that my husband told me he didn't want to be married to me anymore, that he no longer loved me, he said, I will always love you. I'm just no longer in love with you. I almost felt numb. So the numbness will happen. The sadness will happen. The confusion will happen. But the best thing that you can do for yourself is stand up straight. Stand up, get off that log, and walk forward with determination and desire and a positive attitude and faith in yourself, and say, you know what? I can do this. It's about self-talk. Life is hard. It is hard. I've been there. I understand it. If you've never been in that situation, you're never going to know how hard it is. It is so hard, but you just have to do something every single day that's going to make you happy and make you smile. I remember just walking into the grocery store one day, and some lady looked at me and said, I really like your hair today. And I hadn't washed my hair in like 3 days. And that made my entire week. So just enjoy the little things, or just do something every day that's going to make you smile. If you have to go buy yourself a cup of coffee or call someone on the phone, you got to bring out the happiness in yourself. So that would be my advice that I would say is, you're going to be on the log. It's tough to get back up, but prove to yourself. You don't have to prove to anybody else that you can do it.
So, if any of our listeners want to follow you on social media or read your books or maybe see your next talk, how do they find you?
I have a website. My website's hollyhoffman.com. I'm also on Instagram. I have a Facebook page. I was on on TikTok, but I had to take that one down because I kept looking at videos till 2 in the morning. And so I love TikTok, but I had to do it. But I'm also on LinkedIn, love LinkedIn. So if you just Google me, Holly Hoffman, it all comes up. It's all right there. My website is they can contact me if they want to book me for a program through my website, or if they just want to talk and send me a message. And I also love that as well. And that's another thing that I went through this hard time, and there were many times I asked God why he was putting me through this. And now I know, because people will come up to me and ask me, how did you do this? And nobody really knew because you were on stage smiling and motivating people. And so I also feel like it's advice that I can give other people.
Thank you so much for coming. We will make sure that we link all of that in the show notes. And I truly appreciate you coming and inspiring our listeners. And if you are listening and you're at that 2 a.m. moment where you are on that log or you're on that floor, please remember, no matter what you're going through right now, this is not the end. Just keep going.
Thank you.